Om Bhurбhuvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayantam. Namaste everyone, Sairam all of you. So we continue our videos on Jesus in India, Jesus Christ in India. So in my previous videos, we discussed so many important and interesting questions about possibility that Jesus spent something like 15 years in India, in Himalayas, receiving his spiritual education. That is quite possible that he learned philosophy, Vedic, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain philosophy in different ashrams in India, and also, of course, he learned meditation techniques. And according to oral tradition, Kriya Yoga oral tradition, we know even that Jesus, main guru was Mahavatar Babaji himself. But today we are going to shift our attention to the Yogananda's books on Jesus. And of course, let me introduce Yogananda Paramahamsa. I'm sure actually you know about him pretty well, but anyway, for those who are not sure about Yogananda, his most famous book is Autobiography of a Yogi. This is a book written in 1946, and since that time this is the most famous book about yoga and spirituality, and that's a book about Kriya Yoga basically. And now we discuss some interesting information from another book written also by Yogananda. That's The Second Coming of Christ. This is a wonderful book which is commentaries written by Yogananda. So this wonderful book, commentaries written by Yogananda himself on canonical Gospels. And what is the importance of this book for all of us is that this is the chance for us to see, to analyze, to approach Christian Bible from standpoint of meditation tradition. It's like the modern Gnostic, modern esoteric Christianity. That's very interesting, and I believe very, very useful for all practitioners. Well, because this is not my first video about this question of spiritual tradition of Jesus in India, and Yogananda's wonderful commentaries on Christian Bible, life and the teaching of Jesus. So we continue further. Now I wish to speak about chapter number 6 in this Yogananda's book, and this is about the huge historical event when Jesus came to the Jordan River to his guru John the Baptist and actually demanded initiation. And as you remember, John the Baptist he refused in the beginning, but later on he chose to follow tradition. And let us think for a while about John the Baptist himself. So actually he was guru of Jesus, but what actually we know about John himself? First of all, let me remind you that John the Baptist was a cousin, brother of Jesus. John the Baptist was slightly older, actually a few months older than Jesus, and basically they knew each other from the childhood, we believe. And when we just try to know more about John the Baptist, we face actually the same problem. When we take canonical Gospels, New Testament, we know nothing about actually John's life. We know how he was born. Then we know what's happened, let us say, when John was 29, 30, 31 years old. But the question is, what John done, where he went, and what was details of his life, let us say, when John the Baptist was 15 years old, 20, 25, okay, 28 years old. That's the mystery. And we, well, like to discuss a lot about Jesus' missing years, but quite often forgetting about asking the same question about John the Baptist, because who knows, if we know more about this missing years of Jesus the Baptist, then maybe it will be easier for us to understand about the spiritual pathway of Jesus himself. Okay, John the Baptist, like Jesus himself, John was Jewish, and Jesus was also Jewish. And of course, John and Jesus are real sources and the founders of Christian tradition, Christian religion, but both of them born as the Jewish people. And at the same time, okay, now in 20th and 21st century we speak about Judaism as a certain religion, but those of you who may be Jewish or maybe just know about Jewish tradition slightly more, of course, then you know that there are many branches in the Jewish tradition, even right now in the 21st century. When we just discuss the situation which was, let us say, 1st century, Jesus' time, so many kinds of Judaism, branches of Judaism, schools of Judaism at that time, so flourishing in Palestine and, by the way, in all Roman Empire. And one of them is extremely interesting for us, that's Essenes. Essenes, the mystical tradition, and now historians, they suppose that the beginning of Essene tradition was something like 2nd century BC, and then maybe they could survive 1st to 2nd century of the new era, but actually, so that like maybe 3 or 4 centuries of the Essene history is actually important for the Christian tradition, because it's look like that monastic tradition and philosophy of Jesus himself could come basically not only from so-called classical Jerusalem temple tradition or Torah or Old Testament prophets books, but from the Essene school as well. And if we take John the Baptist, his lifestyle, his philosophy of John the Baptist, it's actually classical Essene mystic. So it means, that's very important for us, that if Guru of Jesus was the member of Essene tradition, it means, well, Jesus himself was actually Essene as well. At least he received certain initiations and training in Essene communities as well. Quite often we speak about years which Jesus spent in India learning meditation and Vedic and Buddhist philosophy, but on the way there is a chance that he could spend some months or years with Essene communities as well. And what we know about Essenes, that it was first of all Jewish group, and it was a kind of monastic tradition. We know that it was very strict, ascetic, vegetarian, and also what actually how it was, all that Essene groups, they spent years and years in caves near the Dead Sea, very far, actually outside of the Jerusalem. And so basically it was a strict monastic and meditation oriented group with mystical prayers, and that's actually the image of John the Baptist. And the John the Baptist, he was strictly against all that corrupted Jerusalem temple tradition and all that rulers, political system of that time. So that was classical Essene vision of the world and spirituality. Means that when we analyze John the Baptist, it means we have a chance to actually see one more source for the Christian mysticism, especially Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, and of course Roman Catholic ascetic tradition, monastic tradition, which came into being from the roots, which are Essenes. That's, I think, also very interesting for us to know. Of course, it's extremely important, at least for me, that Yogananda always emphasizing that this connection, this connection like guru-disciple relationship between Jesus and John the Baptist was really a very old one. And of course, when we speak about esoteric approach to the Christian Bible, we have to speak about reincarnation. And in most of the Christian churches, they actually deny reincarnation, but as you must probably know that before 553, before that, the first 5 or 6 centuries of Christian history, most of the Christians knew about reincarnation, but just the leaders of the church. In 553 they stopped that, and since that time for the Christian churches it's kind of prohibited to speak about reincarnation. But anyway, it's a very important foundation actually for any kind of knowledge about soul and consciousness. If you know about reincarnation, means you know about spiritual and divine evolution. If you deny reincarnation, then actually not possible to understand the depths of evolution itself. And according to Yogananda, John the Baptist in his previous incarnation was not less than Elijah the prophet, and Jesus was Elisha, also prophet of from the Old Testament history. And it means that's interesting that we have tips about that really in a Christian Bible, but explanation of Yogananda is pretty much radical about this. And I think anyway we can believe or not about that Jesus in his previous incarnation was Elisha the prophet, and John the Baptist was Elijah. Okay, you can accept it or not, but anyway it's an interesting point, which is also giving us some deeper understanding of the situation itself. For the most of them Christians, that Jesus was born as the perfect master, as Messiah, as Christ, from the very beginning. Even if we just can imagine the childhood of Jesus, we already normally imagine the perfect master, perfect Messiah. But at the same time, according to the Gnostic, esoteric Christianity, and according to a Kriya Yoga meditation tradition, Jesus was, of course, very special being, very special person from the very beginning. That's for sure. But at the same time, we are speaking about certain evolution, spiritual evolution of the Jesus. That's the reason why he went to India, spent there years and years. And we also suppose that he spent some, at least a couple of years with Essene tradition in the caves near Dead Sea outside of Jerusalem. So he was learning philosophy, mystical tradition, meditation. He was learning and he was practicing himself. That's approach of esoteric Christianity, Gnostic tradition. That's approach of Yogananda and his commentaries to the New Testament. And of course, the huge question is it diminishing importance of Jesus if we'll speak about his spiritual progress? I don't think that it's in any sense diminishing importance of Jesus, because we can speak about, for example, Buddha. Buddha was born as a in a royal family. Okay, he was a family person. Then he became a spiritual seeker. Then he practiced meditation. Later on, he reached this state of enlightenment and became Buddha. But the fact that Buddha himself went through this process of meditation is not diminishing his importance. So the same basically with the Jesus. Let me repeat again and again, if we know more and more about Jesus' life, Jesus' spiritual progress, then we can understand his philosophy much better. So that it means when we speak about, Jesus as the disciple of John the Baptist, as a disciple who was learning meditation and philosophy in Essene tradition near Dead Sea outside of Jerusalem, and years which he spent in India, Himalayas, learning meditation and philosophies there. Actually, that's also add for us in our possibility to understand his philosophy. Okay, in Orthodox Christianity and Roman Catholic Christian tradition, we speak about Jesus as a human being, human reality, human nature, and Christ, which is divine nature. And Jesus the Christ, it means he was human and divine, as a Jesus, human as Christ, divine. Christian churches, they're speaking about two natures, two realities of Jesus the Christ. But if you go to any church and ask any priest about your own nature, then any priest will tell you, no, you don't have divine part of your nature, you have only human, and most probably you are sinner. That sounds pretty strange, because if you just read New Testament, you see how Jesus himself actually spoke so many times about divine nature of each human being. And it means, according to the New Testament, originally, if you just read New Testament without any church influence, you easily may see that Jesus himself told to his disciples, to the people, about that each human being, first of all, must, not only me, but must to establish this connection with the God as the personal Father, Heavenly Father, not just God who is a dictator and ready to torture people. No, it's a personal Father, personal source, and each and every human being has his or her like human and divine nature. So it means each of us as a human beings actually, in a sense, Jesus. In each of us, in a divine sense, Christ. You know, Christ consciousness is the very foundation, very essence of each human being. But the problem is that you as a human being, as a symbolical Jesus, okay, you already Jesus, symbolically speaking, but to become Christ you have to practice meditation. That's Gnostic or esoteric approach. As you know, I was learning meditation of Kriya Yoga for years from my personal guru Yogi Rama, who was really a bright and great yogi master, and he was direct disciple of Mahatma Babaji himself. And Yogi Rama, he spent years and years in the United States. He was a Hindu person born in a Hindu Shaiva family, and he was basically from the Shaiva tradition. But you know, Yogi Rama was learning also a lot of things about Christian tradition, and he himself, I mean my personal guru Yogi Rama, told me so many interesting things. He gave me a lot of the instructions in a Christian terminology. That was very interesting to meet Hindu guru in South India and receive, you know, for me instructions about meditation and spirituality, generally speaking, in a Christian terminology. The point is that doesn't matter what kind of terminology we can use, Vedic, Buddhist, Jewish, Islamic or Christian, you know, terminology can be different, but the essence of spirituality, the main point is actually everywhere is the same. Spirituality means self-inquiry. We as a human beings, as symbolical Jesus, we meditate and we can discover and awake this huge, great Christ consciousness. That's what's happened with the Jesus, historical Jesus, and according with the Yogananda's commentaries to the New Testament, actually that's what's happened. When Jesus came to his guru, John the Baptist, then with the help of this meditation, and of course not only with the help of initiation, but with the help of meditation, so personal effort, historical Jesus became Jesus the Christ, because it's like, you know, it's like in the beginning Buddha was just human being, Siddhartha, and then with the help of meditation he became Buddha. The same way Jesus, as the historical personal self, historical man, through the meditation he became Christ. And the very, very huge point this is that each human being, he or she, I mean everyone, by practicing meditation may become Christ, may become Buddha. And when we speak about Christ or Buddha, it's not a personal, it's universal consciousness. And it means if you become Christ, if you become Buddha, it doesn't mean that we have to worship to you. No. That's not the point. The point is when you become Christ, you are starting to see this Christ consciousness in each and every human being, because Christ consciousness is impersonal and it's like everywhere. Okay, let me complete this video for today. In my previous and future videos with this title, Jesus Christ in India. So we continued our discussion on esoteric inner true meditative meaning of life and philosophy of Jesus. Of course, we're going to continue our discussions on this wonderful book, which is the Second Coming of Christ. This is the Yogananda's commentaries to the New Testament, and of course we continue our again just discussion. I'm not going to force you to believe me, okay? That's the reason why I'm always saying this just discussion about years which Jesus spent in India and all that interesting questions. And let me repeat again and again, Jesus was and is great spiritual master, and his message is absolutely universal. Doesn't matter, you can be Christian or not, you can be Jewish or Hindu or Buddhist, or you can belong to any New Age tradition, you can be non-Christian at all. That's not the point. My video is about Jesus, not for the Christians, but for the spiritual people. And you know, we have to be open to any wonderful message given by Jesus, by Buddha, by Krishna, by Sai Baba, any, like by Dalai Lama. I mean, any great spiritual master can teach us many useful things about meditation and spiritual divine evolution. So let us be open-minded to everything, any possibility. God bless you. Sai Ram. See you next time.